Hi everyone, I've put together a very short video here about a few reasons why maybe you're not being employed for certain internships or jobs that you're going for. So I'll go straight into it. And one of the first reasons could be your CV. Is it professional enough? There's a few common errors that I see when I look at different CVs from students. One is irrelevant information, which I'll touch on again in a second. One of these is your school grades. So at this stage of your career for an employer, it's really university, college, what you've been doing across those years that makes you stand out. So if you're in the latter stage of your degree, then speak about your dissertation. But throughout the course, speak about laboratory experience, particular modules that you've done. You really want to hone in on that sort of stuff. And having half a page about what you did at school 5 years ago isn't very relevant right now. There's other stuff as well, achievements, hobbies. So if you played football 10 years ago and got a runners-up medal in a competition, or you speak about how you like music or meeting up with your friends for a pint, it doesn't add anything, doesn't sell your ability, your skill set to be employed for that job. And going on with that, are you actually selling yourself? I often see on a lot of student CVs one line for a job that really should have 4 or 5 lines, a lot more information. So this could be a voluntary position, working with your local GAA or soccer team. Because it's voluntary, you think, well, I'll just put one line, it's not that big. But then you'll put 5 or 6 lines for a job in retail. I'm not downplaying retail, but if you're going for a job in sport, the sport job obviously has a lot more credence. So I would definitely review that. Look at certain jobs that you've had in sport, and if you are going back to your CV and thinking, actually, yeah, I've just put 1 or 2 lines, I haven't sold that, put a lot more into it. Secondly, on reflection, when you're going for a job, you didn't get the job. Did you read the advert in great detail? And did you relate that when you wrote your application for that job? So I found one job here. This is in Hertfordshire for an S&C position, so a student or graduate role. And you can pause it and look at this in more detail. But what I would say is if I was the employer here at this place, I would expect that cover letter they want to strongly relate to what they've put here in the bullet points. So if you drift away from that and go on your own tangent, speak about something else, it's definitely going to decrease your chances because the person looking at this letter is going to say how much of that letter is next to the stuff that we've put in the advert. Does it relate? If not, and some people are really harsh. If you read some job adverts, they'll actually say if you don't relate to the criteria in the advert, you won't be considered instantly. So you do need to be very careful when you're writing your letters. The next one's really simple. Someone might just be better than you. You might be good, but someone could be really good. Um, that's the blunt answer. That's kind of the elephant in the room. Sometimes as lecturers, we're cautious about saying that to students that you're simply at that stage, just not the right level, not the right candidate for what the company wanted. And there's no shame in that. That's just life. It's maybe in 6 months' time, maybe in 12 months' time, you'll be ready for that position. Maybe right now you just weren't ready for it. And that's completely normal. And I've been there a million times myself. And with that in mind, that's not a slur on you, that's not a criticism. As I said, it's just stage of life. So you want to look at these sort of things. So after that rejection, you'd ask yourself firstly, do you lack a qualification? So go back to the advert. Was there a qualification that you didn't have but the job wanted? Therefore, they might have employed someone who had that qualification. Secondly, do you need experience at a lower level? My experience, which I'll talk about in another video, was all really throughout my undergraduate degree, kind of Sunday league level. Very, very low. There was no ego with me. There was low expectations. It was just for me, any experience is good experience. So if you're going for placements now at professional level and getting knocked back, there's no shame in that. You're doing your undergraduate degree. It's really good if you get into that position, but it's very rare and very difficult to get into. So you need to maybe change your sights a little bit and go at a slightly lower level or a lower role within a company. And thirdly, do you lack knowledge in a relevant area as well? So if you went to the interview, I'll speak about the interview in a second, but if there are certain questions you may have slipped up on, they may have asked what you knew about the research in that area. Um, Things like that. Do you lack that knowledge? Is it very clear that you need to go away and read books, read journal articles, listen to podcasts, and simply learn a lot more about that topic? So next is the interview. So if you did get as far as the interview, I appreciate in some circumstances it's just you sent the CV and then got the knockback email. But if you had the email giving you an interview, you go, didn't go well, Well, I would assess that. And firstly, I'd ask, did you research the company? And this is where I slipped up so many times in those first couple of years after I graduated. I was okay with Leicester Tigers because I was a fan of the club, so it didn't seem that much of a problem really. But a new company, I would not go on the website and spend a lot of time understanding different things about the company. So the values of the company, what are the facilities like, who works there, what do they do, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses. It's a common question at an interview, and if you're not prepared for that, it's a huge hurdle that you can fall on. Secondly, is maybe as simple as this sounds, how much effort did you make to dress up? Or if it was on Zoom, did you think, well, I'll just make it a bit lax because it's on Zoom, I'll just wear a t-shirt, jumper. Always make that effort. It sounds really obvious, and to some of you, it may come across as really patronising me saying that, but I've been there. I've been for some interviews where I was half-assed about the job, so I dressed half-assed. I was far from a state, but it could be a shirt and trousers. If it was a job I really cared about, full suit, tie, the lot, shine my shoes. So little things like that can make a difference to show that you really care. Thirdly, did you show a genuine interest in the role? I think a lot of pressure sometimes into an interview is, how do I answer the questions? Have I fully prepared? Those are pressures you should think about, but did you really show that you cared about the job? And again, I've been there. Leicester Tigers, I was all guns blazing, kept saying how much this meant to me without trying to sound like a fanboy, but how much those sort of positions meant to me. But I've been to other interviews where maybe my body language wasn't right, maybe I didn't come across as being that keen, despite maybe being qualified for the job. So only you can answer that if you genuinely care about that job. Um, but it's something to bear in mind when you go into the interview for the next time. Are you really showing that you care? And are you showing that you care by asking questions at the end as well? So it's not a good sign at the end of an interview if you're asked if you've got any questions and you kind of shrug your shoulders and walk out the door. You have to get the balance right. If you ask five, six, seven, eight questions, they're trying to kick you out the door because they've got to get the next person in. But you want to show that you're keen. You want to show that you've researched the company and you have questions about the company itself. Lastly, this one's really short. Um, Sometimes you've done nothing wrong. This is actually really common in sports science. We live in a very oversaturated market where, quite simply, a lot of people want to do what you want to do. I mean, S&C is one of the biggest ones. When I ask a class who wants to do S&C, a lot of hands go up. There aren't many jobs. That's only one university. You imagine all the other hands that go up across different places around the world and the few jobs that are out there. I'll give you a good example of that. A couple of years after I graduated, I went for a job at West Brom. It was an internship. It was a paid internship. 400 people went for it. I found out afterwards. I got a kind of template rejection email from the club and politely saying thanks but no thanks due to the volume of applicants, brackets 400. We can't give you any specific feedback. So I'm not trying to scare you and say every single job's going to have that many people, but it can be very common. There could be 30, 40, 50 plus people that go for the job you want, and they could have exactly the same qualifications as you, um, similar personalities, and it makes it very hard for the recruiters to decide who to take on. So to finish off, just four very quick points. Firstly, I'd get someone to read your CV. That could be me. If you want to send it on to me, you've got my contact details. If you want me to have a look at it, I'm more than happy to provide some feedback and give you an insight into maybe where things have gone well and where they haven't gone so well. Next time you see a job, read the advert in really great, precise detail. Apply that to your cover letter and your CV. Show that you really care about that job and you've taken the time um, to make yourself show that you really care. Thirdly, set realistic targets. By all means, go for the jobs that you think are a bit out of your reach. I did that and got a couple of them. Rejected by a lot more than I got, but there's no harm in being really ambitious in what you want to do. But be realistic. For each job you go for, maybe have a bit of a number in your head out of 10. How realistic is it I'm going to get that job? It certainly hurts more when it's 8, 9, or 10. But it's not a big deal if in your head you think, two, three out of 10 chance I'm going to get that job. And finally, I'm going to do a whole video on this another time, but prepare. You've got to prepare. It sounds really patronising and obvious, but plenty of times I didn't prepare properly. I used to scratch my head afterwards thinking, why didn't I get the job? And it's partly why. I didn't prepare. I didn't show enough that I cared. I didn't research the company. All these things will count in the future. Okay, so I've kept that as short as I can, around about the 10-minute mark. Um, if you want me to expand on these areas, I think the main thing really is send me the CV, send me applications. If you aren't sure why you didn't get the job, if you're not getting specific feedback from a company because there were so many applicants, they haven't got the time. I'm more than happy to look at it, provide some feedback, give you some ideas on where to improve for your next application. Okay, my contact details are here as always. If you want to have a chat about any of those things I've mentioned, give me a shout. Okay, thank you for listening. I'll speak to you again soon.